Hey guys, and welcome to the Lower Chesapeake Bay Fishing Report, the first podcast to bring you the local offshore, nearshore, and inshore fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. We got a great fishing report lined up for you guys this week, but first let's hear who's making the show possible. Tired of battling salt corrosion on your boat, trailer, and reels? Meet Salt's Gone, your ultimate solution. This powerful, instantly acting chelating agent tackles salt and brine with ease, featuring corrosion inhibitors to protect against future damage and surfactants for a thorough clean. Salt's Gone is pH neutral, making it safe for all boat materials, metals, glass, paint, vinyl wraps, and more. Highly concentrated, just 1 gallon creates 100 gallons of ready-to-use solution. Apply it with or without running water. It's perfect for any situation. Use code GT10 to save 10% at saltsgone.com. Or if you need faster delivery, use Amazon or your favorite retailer. Listen up, folks. AFTCO has a new promotion for all Great Days Outdoors Podcast Network listeners. They're now offering a camo sunglasses cleaner cloth with any purchase of AFTCO products. I especially enjoy their hooded sun protection shirts, as well as their Seiko fluorocarbon. All you got to do to get your coupon code is text LCBFR to 779-345-2918. Again, just text the letters LCBFR to 779-345-2918 to get subscribed to our email list, and we'll send you the promo code via email. All right, guys, kicking off the show this week, we're going to dive into some offshore topics, and we got one of my favorite guys, favorite captains, all-around great dude on the show again, Captain Bill Pappas with Playing Hooky Charters. How we doing, Captain?
Good morning. Welcome aboard Playing Hooky Charters.
I swear it's so catchy every time I hear that or get booked and get hooked. And I've been cracking up, man. It's like, what are the odds that the 2 times I'm driving over to the Eastern Shore in the past week or so, I get the pleasure of seeing you tight on some giant bull red drum right there. I mean, it's like you want to talk about FOMO and envy and jealousy, like being on a way to do something work wise and then getting to see right there. There's some fun being had. It was tough, but yeah, man. Tell me about what you guys have been doing with those drums.
Man, that was an awesome video you posted, man, on your story. I looked at it and you're like, look, your buddy's riding shotgun. He sees us riding over the bridge. You go, there's Playing Hooky. And he goes, they're tight. And you were like, nuh-uh. And you look and you're like, they're tight. And we had an angler on the back on our charter ripping up a big drum. Yeah, we had a great time out there. We booked a walk-on trip for a Thursday, and we had a great group of 6 guests come out there. And believe it or not, we caught 20 fish, and each person got 2 citations each. And that's never happened on the boat where, 6 people get 2 citations each. One person actually had 3 citations. Dang. So it was a great, and there was some sharks mixed in, some big toothy critters mixed in and biting us off and going nuts. But to be honest, that was just one of our boat records for that many people getting that many citations and for that little bit amount of fish. It was just a great class, good bite, good fun.
That's awesome.
Get hooked,
Yeah, I mean, two citations each, for a group of 6, that's like 12 plus the one, that's the third. So you had a baker's dozen of citations all in one trip. That's remarkable. So folks are wanting, we'll talk about this at the end, the booking information and how to get on the walk-on alert list, which is important if you want to get out there and do those things. But I want to dive into some of the offshore stuff you guys have been doing, because not only are you guys going out there and putting a hurting on some sea bass and whatnot, but you're also in the Ocean's East Swordfish Tournament. And I know the last time that we talked, you guys were headed out to go exploring. So tell me a little bit about that.
I told you that was fun, man. You and I were out there, and I was like, hey, I'm going swording tomorrow. And sure enough, we just wanted to do an exploration trip before the Ocean East Swordfish Tournament for the whole month of October takes place. And we love doing that tournament. And you get to pick 3 days throughout the whole month to go fish. So we wanted to do a little scouting mission. We ran to one of our favorite spots, and it was Matt, Russ, and I just on a fun trip. And we mahi fished early in the morning that day, and we didn't start swordfish until noon. So we threw over some lines, and I mean, instantly we had 1 strike, and we came back around out of those. That was our only one that we didn't get to the boat, because the other 4 bites that we had in the next 4 hours all got in the boat. 2 of them were released and 2 of them were killed. The first one we had a bite on, and we got him up, and he just wasn't long enough, but it was nice to have him, so we let him go. And the second one was the really big one, which was really big for Matt. It was Matt's biggest one. He had a great time fighting that one. We got that one close to the boat, and we slung him in, and then we were going to pull our other rod in, and it was tight.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, no, wait. That's when we had the one on in the beginning. Excuse me. Let me do that again. We had the shorter one on in the beginning that we let
Okay.
go, and then while we were going to move our next drift, we had one on the bobber, and that's the one Matt got to fight, and that was a nice one. That was about I think 95 pounds. Real nice fish, delicious. We got Russ and them gaffed it. They were so stoked. My mate Russ has never seen a sword, so to see him light up and see that sword and stick it with a gaff finally and bring it in the boat, him and Matt were really proud. Matt was stoked because that was his biggest ever.
Ah,
He's caught a good few with me, and over the years. And then I finally get a lower bite. Now the lower bite's tricky because you barely see anything, but I do my moves. I see a lower bite on the deep rod on the last drift. So I was like, hey, let's go get one more giant and go home. And then sure enough, it happened. I fought this thing for about it probably if we'd had the poon rigged up and everything ready to rock, we'd have got that thing in probably 35 minutes. Had a
okay.
good fight on him, pretty good battle. But because we didn't, and when it ran again, it took another 30 minutes to get that thing back to the boat again. So you're talking an hour and 15 fight, a couple times I went for the trim tabs and it was adventurous, that size 120 pounder with, we didn't throw the poon on it, but it was an angry one too. So when every time I would get close, it would just freak out and get mad again, thrash all over the place. And actually, when we actually pulled it in the boat, it chopped us all up, man. It was swinging that sword everywhere at us.
Man.
But we got him in the boat, man. It was awesome. It was just good to get that big fish. I threw the first gaff in it after all that fight. I fought that one too. That's the one I fought. And then I mean, I say fight, but when you have an electric rod, there's two ways of doing it. You can just leave it and let it go, or you can hand pull that line in and fight the fish. And I fight the fish. So
Yeah. I remember.
I call it a fight because it's not that it doesn't your back doesn't feel like you didn't fight. You definitely know you fought leaning over that rod and getting it going.
Yeah, I remember listening to the captain's meeting from Oceans East, and they were talking about the different, Calcutta categories, and one of them in particular was, for manual crank
Hand
only.
crank.
Yeah, and that's got to be a huge difference. But I've got so many questions about that, explosion of excitement you just described. The first question is, talking about catching a swordfish during the day as opposed to nighttime. What are the differences that you do? I'm familiar with nighttime, putting some baits down deep with some big lights on them and whatnot, but during the day, what's the differentiator in terms of like getting located on where you're going to target them and what depth you're going to target them at?
Well, that's a great question because over the last 20, 30 years, there's been a lot of guys fishing overnight for them, and what they've done, with a lot of them knowing and some of them not, is that when the squids rise on the high moon, obviously you're going to get a better bite, and the fish are going to come to the surface looking for them. So they had more chances up in the upper depths and the upper column of the water. And during the daytime, we go a little bit deeper, and we run lights and all that stuff down there. And thanks to Zach Bowles and Ocean's East guys, Justin Wilson and bringing that those ideas to our area
Mm,
and trying that in the daytime about 8 to 10 years ago, and they got on it really good. They had a great time doing it. I see why it's addicting because it's just you might stare at a pole all day, but if you get a fish, man, it's just you feed yourself, you feed a lot of people, and they're just, it's not the it's not a straight up and down fish fight.
mm, yeah,
It changes every time. You have one run, you have some don't, you have some wrapped. It's just you never know what you're gonna get. And for Zach and him to show everybody that and bring that to this area, I was curious. I just wanted to wait till I was ready. And one day I just decided I was like, hey, I've circled this mound long enough down here, and I'm gonna try right here, Richard. And I told Richard that, and the guy Buddy that, who this old 81-year-old, and he said we're gonna catch him. And sure enough, we got it. We ended up catching 160 pounder that day, our first time trying, and then we had another. I lost one bigger than that before we got that one in the boat. So I had figured out my own rig and tried a couple of my own techniques and tried a few different things that I knew other people weren't doing because it wasn't on any of the standard things people talk about or post and
yeah.
videos and stuff. So we were lucky, man. When you go, man, you catch one of those things. There's nothing like it, and I love sword fishing. It's good fun.
And they're technically called, is it a broad-billed swordfish? Is that the technical like
Yeah, that's
species?
the name. That's the name of them. But everyone around the East Coast, if you get a swordfish, there's only one kind, so it's a swordfish.
Got it. Okay.
They're not.
Yeah.
There's billfish and marlin, white marlin, spearfish. Those types,
Got it. That makes
scalefish.
sense.
But and then you got to. I mean, as a swordfish, a billfish. I figured if we hook the white marlin and a blue marlin, and then we drop down and get a sword, that's a grand slam.
Oh yeah.
I don't know
Oh
what you call
yeah.
it for real, but I would call it a grand slam.
Oh yeah. And in terms of the general depth and then the bait, what there's obviously lots of things swimming down there, I would think, not just swordfish. So what's the bait of choice to try to avoid, maybe a shark or some other like, non-targeted species? What do you guys use specifically for swordfish that seems to work to kind of weed everything else out?
Well, I can tell you exactly what I would use, but I have to kill you. So
Yeah.
I'll tell you what everybody else uses, buddy.
All
So here's
right.
what everybody else uses. Everybody else uses squid. They rig the squids up and they use mahi. Mahi belly is very successful. I've had success on squid. I've had success on mahi belly. They've used lures. I've had success on lures. I've even jigged one up with a jig, but I don't ever talk about it because I don't have the pictures of the dead swordfish, so I don't speak of it. But I'll tell you. I think I told you. Well, I'll tell you on the golf course one day. The thing about this sword tournament here they got coming up is I got Troy Marine from Troy Shields,
Shields.
Troy
Yeah.
Marine. Yeah, he's one of my buddies, and he's fishing with me. You got Dave Walden out there. They call him Big Wave Dave, man. He's awesome to fish with. And you got Russ and I and Matt out there as our team. And the cool part about that sword tournament is you got to really have the guy doing the right moves on the wheel. You got to have the right guy staring at this and doing that and running that. And you got to know how you're doing all that stuff in the beginning because you could have a long drift with a tangled line. You're down
Uh,
there, you're using a long leader a lot of times, or you're using a big sinker, and there's a lot going on. You
yeah.
know what I mean? You can spin the boat the wrong way and hang up all your stuff. It's a lot more to it than just, but just like anything in fishing, you can sure as heck show up, drop one down, lucky as it gets, and go ahead and hook one and fight it. Because the rules are hook it and figure it out after that.
Who wrote those rules?
I
You have a
did.
lot of rules.
That's my rule right there. Russ is like, "How are we going to catch that cobia over the outrigger?" And I
I
said,
don't
"Watch."
know.
I said, "We hook it first and figure it out after." And
Oh,
sure
that's
enough, we
funny.
put a bunch of big cobias over the outrigger. It works like.
That is awesome. And then you showed on your story, the swordfish you had caught the week before, and then the swordfish you caught recently, and the difference in colors, with the kind of pumpkin color versus like the white meat. What's the thing that makes them look that way? And like, does it really taste better, the pumpkin colored versus the white colored?
Now that's a great question because I love it. I love eating these swordfish, and I love cooking and making. I'm gonna have that PHC cookbook coming out eventually. I'm hoping to have it out by next Thanksgiving, maybe write it in the spring, get it all going, but over the winter. But I want to make a few good recipes. But yeah, I'll tell you what. Here's the difference. When you see a big a fish, it can multiple size, but most of the bigger ones that you find, they'll be either white or pink. And if you find one that's pink to orange, he's been eating the red shrimp. Now that she's been eating the red shrimp down on the bottom. The red shrimp will make that meat. It's a little more tender, but it's more rich. It's got more of a rich flavor to it. All right. Now, most of the time you get a white one, they're great. The swordfish is great. It's a staple. And, it's more like you could compare it to a mako, or you can
Okay.
compare it to wahoo, something in that zone where you grill it medium rare and it's good. But when you get one of those pumpkins, it's a little bit greasier. It's more like the
Okay.
Toro or the bluefin or the fattier yellowfin or big eye that you can catch. But to be honest, lately, it depends on how the fish is eating because I just compared the one on the story, and the bigger ones that we caught were fattier. Like they make a lot of grease on your knife. You can just see the film on your knife, and that's the grease in that meat because it's just, I don't say grease in a bad way, but it's just such a good way. It's amazing how rich and just fatty it is, and it melts in your mouth. There's a certain bite to it that just disintegrates from that
Yeah.
fattiness. Now the white ones we caught, those 120 and the 100 pounder. I mean, they were both of them equally fatty. Now I haven't seen the white ones be that fatty, but these fish were shorter and really plump. So that could have something they're eating well down there, and that could be a timing on the meat. But we had the pink one, we caught it in the same area, and we had the pumpkin tasting or flavored one. I just had that one last night, and although it was good, I gotta admit the other bigger one, the white one, actually this time was better because
Tasted better?
it was fattier. So
Yeah.
now in my own mind and in my own way, I think white versus pink better.
Yeah.
Fattier white versus it was a small one. It was a just keeper, so it was like a 48-inch from the bottom of the jaw to the fork of the tail. This one was 48, and they got to be 47 to keep. So this one was on the smaller end for the
Yeah.
for the pumpkin. It's the smallest pumpkin I've ever seen. I
Yeah.
don't know. You can have baby pumpkins.
I think those are called squash.
Yeah, right. Hey, that's what they're called. Yeah, but
Yeah.
everyone got some. And they all delicious, and they're oh my god, and every Troy and Dave and everybody loved it. So
That's awesome,
and
man.
yeah, it was great meat.
Well, I can personally attest that the PHC cookbook is definitely going to be worth it because after we golfed recently, you fed me my very own first Tahi Makos straight off the griddle. And oh my God, Captain Bill, That was a life-changing moment. So as we wrap up, folks that want to get out with you and get booked for any of the above that we've talked about, what's going to be the best way for them to contact you and get booked aboard Plain Hooky?
All right, I'll give you the phone number first. It's area code 757-619-3530. We have the Facebook you can touch, or the playinhookycharters.com. That's PLAYINHOOKEYCHARTERS.com. That's us.
Perfect. Awesome. It's always a pleasure having you on the show. Guys, stick around for a word from our sponsors, and we're going to be back with a very cool segment. We'll talk with you soon. Hilton's Offshore Charts. The days of heading out and blindly looking for good fishing areas are pretty much over. Don't waste time and money on fuel searching for fish. You need the most recent, highest resolution images to not only know where to go, but where not to go. The knowledge provided by today's technology is critical when planning an offshore fishing trip. So make the choice that professional captains all over the East Coast make and choose Hilton's Real-Time Navigator. The easy-to-use interface and excellent customer service will have you on the fish every time you go. Check them out at hiltonsoffshore.com. That's hiltonsoffshore.com. All right, guys. Well, one of the things that makes this show so special is that, we've got great partners here in our local community that sponsor the show so that you guys can hear the reports every week for free. And every now and then we get a chance to talk to our sponsors and learn more about what they do and the part that they play in the community. So for this next segment, I'm excited to talk to local subject matter expert in all things wholesale seafood and sustainability, Robert Edmonds with Sam Russ Seafood. Robert, welcome to the show, man. How are you doing?
You don't have to call me Robert. You can call me Robbie. A little too formal. Not there yet, but yeah, doing good. Excited to chat seafood with you and dive into it a little more.
Yeah, Robbie, I've known you and Sam Russ a long time. Obviously, we are family, and so that's a huge part of why this partnership means so much to me. But more importantly, the alignment around sustainability. So just to kind of start off, one of the things we talk about on the show all the time is how we as individuals can contribute towards sustainability in terms of prolonging the recreational fishing. But recreational fishing spills right into commercial fishing, which obviously plays a big part of where you guys, as one of the largest wholesale seafood distributors on the East Coast, comes into play as a buyer. So hitting sustainability right out of the bat, what would you say, at Sam Russ Seafood, some of the important core values that you guys have as, tenants in your buying processes that support sustainability?
Yeah, well, there's obviously so many options for restaurants and grocery stores to choose from when it comes to seafood. I mean, you have your frozen fresh options and, dozens and dozens of different seafood species that they can choose from. But one thing we do on our end is we are highlighting sustainable fish on all our fish sheets. So when you get a fresh seafood list from Sam Rust, you're going to be able to see what exactly is sustainable and what's not, just based on our list that we send out. So obviously, we have to carry all types of seafood to cater to all the different people that we service, but we make it easy for restaurants and markets to choose sustainable options on a day-to-day basis. So just providing the information, I think, is one of the key things that we do. And when possible, we always try to source closer to home. So we're fortunate to have a lot of great partners, a lot of great fisheries right here in Virginia, Carolina regions. So we pull from those people as much as we can. Obviously, there's some species that are not local to the Virginia, Carolina area, but as much as we can, we pull from local fishermen.
That's really cool to hear, just the part that you guys play and how that supports the local ecosystem. And then, from a high level, talking about offering specific, items that are more sustainable or being particular and not buying as much of things that maybe are going to be, endangered, so to speak. It's just cool to kind of learn that whole, process, like zooming way out and understanding that everything from what you order on your menu at your local restaurant down to what we as individual recreational anglers are doing all plays a part in sustaining the species that are obviously loved here in our local waters, things like flounder and speckled trout, and on the list goes. So I want to learn some history. Sam Rust would have been our great grandfather. So what year did he start the business? And maybe just kind of talk me through some of the history and legacy of from where it was started, kind of how it was started, and how we get to 2024, where, Robbie's kind of driving the ship and making things happen. What's that history and that lineage look like?
So it was started in 1938 by our great grandfather, Sam Rust. And we've had family in the business ever since. Our grandfather took it over Captain Bob for a long time. And I think a lot of his ideals and his kind of legacy still lives on today in the business. I think we're fortunate to have a lot of family in the business. It's definitely a business that's grown to a point where it's not one person that can drive this ship. It takes so many people from the top down. It's really incredible what we do on a day-to-day basis, getting fish from point A to point B extremely quickly. You're dealing with a perishable product. So you really don't have time to dilly-dally around with fish. So you got to get it in the shop, processed, and out to the customer as quick as possible. And I think we do a really good job of that. And I think that's one advantage of working with a local supplier is you're going to get fish from point A to point B a lot quicker than some of these larger companies out there because they're, possibly sitting on fish for multiple days, sitting on freight trucks in other states. Whereas we're getting stuff right to our facility here in Virginia and out to customers, sometimes same day or next day. So it's a very quick turnaround for most of our shellfish and finfish. And I think that's a big advantage to our customers. But yeah, I mean, we're very fortunate where we've been and where we are now. We've seen a lot of growth over the past 5 to 10 years, a lot due to, I think, really good people. We've got some great account managers that continue to bring on new accounts and service our, legacy accounts very, very well. So we're fortunate to have really strong people across the board that really help, drive the ship.
Speaking of like where you are now and where you guys came from, legacy to me is always a unique factor to understand about different businesses, and so, we get to meet some of our charter guides and, they're kind of a part of a legacy story where like they've learned from those that went before, so to speak. So in terms of those that went before, talking about Captain Bob, our grandfather and Samuel Rust, our great grandfather, what are some of those, important parts of our legacy that you would say you still see present in the business today, going back to like the early days of how it was started and the vision and the purpose? Do you still see some of those passions and things present in today and how you guys operate the business?
Absolutely. I think the big thing with us is just transparency across the board. So, seafood, there's a lot of avenues that you can go to get a seafood item. You can cut corners. You can get things that are maybe not true, like dry packed scallops is a great example. There are so many games played with scallops in our industry. Percentage of water in a scallop can vary, even between a dry pack and a wet pack. And some people aren't as honest. I think we're very straightforward with what we sell to our customers, what we provide to them, and they're going to know what they're going to get in a gallon of scallops and across the board. And I think that transparency is really important, that honesty and trust that they have in buying fish that they know is coming from a reputable source. There's a lot of places they can get seafood, but when you're buying from Sam Rust, you know what you're going to get. We're going to be honest with you. Price might not always be the cheapest, and a lot do because seafood, isn't the same across the board. If you put a little bit more water in a scallop, it's going to be cheaper. There's a reason behind that. So I think educating our customers and just being transparent with the products that we're offering is a real key.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think, we both grew up at some point in our summers, cutting some fish and doing some jobs. I remember as a kid thinking, hey, at some point, the guy from Dirty Jobs is going to show up here and see what it's like to cut fish all day and dump gut bins and, transfer live lobsters. This is hard work, and it is, and I would say to anybody that's ever enjoyed, a fried flounder dish or a beautiful cut of grouper or swordfish in a local restaurant here in Hampton Roads or, into Northern Virginia, the Outer Banks, to go and take that process backwards all the way to the point of where it's being cared for in these, pristine arrangements where you've got the right temperature and the right gloves and the right, outfits so everyone's safe, protected, the food is safe. But to actually watch these folks cut these fish to order is remarkable. But one thing I do remember is I believe it's above every scale, which obviously is critical when it comes to, weights. One of the things that's key about the lineage there is, right on the front of the building, just like on our dollar bills, you see, in God we trust. And so there's certainly a derivative there of faith. And I remember there's a scripture above some of the scales that talks, I think it's a proverb, says something about how God loves even weights and measures. And so I see that as a way that you guys don't just talk about it, but you be about it in terms of building into your culture integrity and honesty because it is so critical to your downstream customer that they can trust that what you say and what you deliver is going to be what they get when that delivery comes. So, switching gears into some of the kind of fun parts of seafood, in your experience, you guys probably see some exotic things come through. What are some of the more unique or rare type of seafood items that come through Sam Russ that people might not know are available through you guys here locally?
So actually, for instance, today we have local sugar toads, which are also called chicken of the sea. So little puffer fish. I think I remember seeing on Instagram you caught one the other day.
Yeah.
So they're actually really good eating. We have a lot of chefs that love working with these puffer fish. And so that's something that we have in today. So that's kind of a cool one. That's not every day, but if have your account manager, you just ask him, hey, let me know when you get, puffer fish chicken of the sea in, and we'll hook you up. So that's a cool item. We had some Rhode Island tautog in a couple weeks ago. So that's a really cool one. Obviously, flounder season is coming around right now, so we'll be really loading up on local flounder. Rockfish is right around the corner. And then soft crabs are toning down now, but during the summer, we have a great supply of soft crabs. And that's a really popular one, all through Virginia Beach, Richmond, North Carolina. So soft crabs is a really, really big one for us. And local shrimp. We have a great supply of North Carolina greentails. So that's something that we have frozen and fresh. So you can actually keep it on your menu year round if you want. So that's a really cool local item that we try to push.
I have to attest that the greentail, local shrimp are in fact phenomenal. We've been seeing them a little bit here in our local rivers of the Lynnhaven, and man, they are buttery and delicious and just absolutely delightful. So that's really cool to know that you guys have those as well. Back to the puffer fish. So, inside of Sam Rust, if you go up the stairs and you're in that little waiting area before going to the office, in a plexiglass container, there is one of the largest puffer fish I've ever seen. I did not know that were called sugar toads. It's funny because Austin Hain, who's one of our regulars on the show, replied to my story. He goes, "You put that back? Did you not know that? That's like one of the best tasting fish." I had no idea. I was just entertained by watching it, puff up and get, turn into a little float and then, spew all its water out and then, flop around. So that's very interesting. So chicken of the sea. Do you have any idea where that name came from?
No idea. It's always been on our little description in our system on it. Most people call it sugar toads, but we still have chicken of the sea in there in our system. So I guess it's one of those old names that just tagged along with it. So
that is funny. And speaking of old names and just kind of where things came from, I understand a little bit about our history and kind of where the inspiration came from. But I think going down that hall at Sam Rust in the upstairs area, there's kind of some pictures that depict, we started here, then we went there, and then here. So right now you guys are in the Copeland Industrial Park area of Hampton. Go backwards in the timeline, to where it started from and talk me through that. I want to understand how it grew over the years.
So it started actually in a shack in a backyard. So Sam Rust had one truck and some coolers of fish. So he would hustle around, go pick up shellfish and fish at the docks, and then go deliver in Virginia Beach and the local area to restaurants and markets. And so it really started, I think, probably the first 20, 30 years, it was very small. Probably 1-2 trucks max, a handful of people. And then Cat and Bob came along and, I think there was an opportunity for growth with the right people. And I think he helped see a lot of that through. We moved into the Phoebus facility. So that was a big step up. We started working with some more like major markets and grocery chains. And I think that really helped kind of spark the growth of Sam Rust. And then in the 1990s is when we moved into our current facility in Hampton. And that was a huge step up, state-of-the-art facility, had a lot of tour groups come through. And that really launched us into kind of where we are now. And, the world's constantly changing. We have to keep up with food safety regulations, HACCP. There's so much going on, shellfish sanitation. So we put a lot of effort into food safety. We have people on staff that are totally dedicated to food safety. So that's a really important piece of it nowadays, more so than it was in the past. So I think that's a really important thing going forward for us is how can we continue to improve that and not just meet expectations, but exceed, what the regulations are.
Yeah, there's There is definitely a lot of responsibility there that you guys take on to ensure that, product gets in timely and gets out timely to ensure that by the time it's on a dinner plate at a restaurant, it's as fresh as it can possibly be. And one of the things always remarkable to me too is like when you go walk into a seafood warehouse and there's really not like a smell. You guys have the incredible, ozonation process and all these things that, really keep everything as fresh as possible. It's truly a remarkable thing. And I go back to when that was put there, that facility now, you said state of the art. It truly is, but it wasn't state of the art by accident. Captain Bob, our grandfather, was an engineer in the shipyard first, and he just had a kind of a beautiful mind for creating and solving problems. I remember growing up working in, his property with him and the tractor and the tools, and it was just seemingly nothing he couldn't fix or figure out. And so when he designed, the cutting rooms and the shellfish room and the sauce room, the rough order room, the deep freezer, everything had a purpose and intent expressly designed for what needed to happen in order to meet those expectations that you talk about exceeding. So it's really cool to just kind of look back and see that, something that was created, almost like our Constitution. We go back to the very beginning. It's like, man, how did you guys figure this stuff out way back then that's still relevant today? And it was, I think, 1990 when you guys moved into that facility, what, 34 years ago now. And all those tools and processes are just as relevant today as they were then, and they work just as well too. So, Robbie, we've talked about all kinds of cool things that make Sam Rust, different and unique in terms of the offerings and the ways that you guys service anyone that puts seafood on a menu anywhere in our region. So, for those listening that identify as one of those people that helps put seafood on a menu, what's the best way for them to get in contact with Sam Rust Seafood and start ordering from you guys?
So you can go on our website and fill out our new customer form. You can always call us at 757-838-7200. And we have local account managers in every market. So we have Virginia Beach, Richmond, Charlottesville, the Outer Banks area. So depending on where you're at, we'll get you hooked up with the appropriate account rep. And they can help work with you directly on your menu items, what you may be looking for seafood wise, and then also giving you some ideas on maybe some cool different local products that we can assist you guys with. So yeah, definitely give us a shout. We would love to see if we can help work with your restaurant market and provide a solid seafood platform for you.
Awesome. That's great to know. So I'm not just calling corporate up in Hampton and talking to, a call center. I'm gonna meet somebody that's in my backyard and get a chance to build that relationship and get some great products on my menu. So man, and you guys are also on Instagram and Facebook as well too, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we have an Instagram page. We try and post some cool stuff on there, things that are different each week. We do a lot of reposts. So customers that are using our products, we try and repost them to promote them in the local markets too. So definitely a lot of activity on social.
Yeah, it kind of gives you a cool inside look. It's like you see a truck driving down the road that, it's got the Sam Rust logo and the mural on the side of it. And you just kind of wonder, like, well, how did it get there? And it really is a marvelous process to understand how it gets from, coming in the receiving door and then out the shipping door. So, definitely check out the social media because you're going to get to see some cool stuff there, some cool species. I know over the years, some really remarkable things have come through there. Like I think one time a lobster, I forget how big it was, but I have a picture of it, holding up its claws were as big as my head. And I think that one ended up getting donated to the Virginia Marine Science Museum where they kept it in a, tank because it was probably what, like 60, 70 years old or something ridiculous.
Yeah, it's likely. I mean, some of those can get really big, 15+ pound lobsters. So they're massive creatures for sure.
Yep. And I also remember a snowy grouper, and I think it was the largest snowy grouper that had been caught in a long, long time. And you guys had a picture of it. I think Brock, one of our family members, was standing next to it, and it was massive. I forget how many pounds it was, but it had to have been 400 or 500 pounds or something. I'm probably exaggerating, but it was big.
Yeah, I think we got a couple pictures of Brock there with some. I got a swordfish one, I believe, with him. So there's definitely been some large fish that have come through that facility. We got a couple bluefins have come through there that are, gosh, 400 or 500 pounds. I mean, those are huge fish. So
I can attest to recently seeing that one as well as eating some of that one, and it was delightful. So, Robbie, thank you so much for taking some time to share more about Sam Rust Seafood. Like we always say in our ad, the restaurant business can be tough, so don't cuss, call Sam Rust, and talk to Robbie and other professionals like him. Robbie, thank you again, man. Pleasure having you on the show.
absolutely appreciate you having us.
Awesome. Well, guys, that's going to wrap up a really cool inside look into the world of wholesale seafood and distribution right here in our backyard of the Lower Chesapeake Bay. Let's take a quick break and hear from one of our sponsors, and we'll be right back with you soon. It's time we talked about catching some serious savings. Imagine harnessing the power of the sun to cut your energy bills and having a roof that's built to last. Convert Solar and Roofing specializes in top-notch solar installations and durable roofing solutions that stand up to the toughest elements. Their solar panels are designed to maximize efficiency, and their roofs are built with premium materials to ensure long-lasting protection. Whether you're out on the water or at home, their expert team ensures you're covered. As fellow anglers in the Lower Chesapeake Bay, the team at Convert Solar and Roofing cares about both sustainable living and sustainable fishing. So reel in those savings today and visit www.convert-solar.com or call 757-44-SOLAR. Make your energy and roof as reliable as your favorite fishing lure. Call Convert Solar and Roofing today. Hey guys, welcome to the show this week. I'm excited to talk to Captain Travis Kemp aboard Foolproof Fishing. Welcome back to the show, Travis. How you been, man?
Pretty good. Pretty good. How about yourself?
Good. The season has changed. It's caused some obvious adjustments in temperature. Obviously Hurricane Helene came through. Thoughts and prayers out to those in, Tennessee and North Carolina that were affected by that. And,
Absolutely.
just thinking about, seasons change. You adjust your target species. You kind of dive back into the archives. Like, wait, what was I catching this time last year? And it just makes you kind of change things up a little bit in a good way, and kind of enjoy these couple of like intermediary weeks, months while the temperatures are like really pleasant. Before it gets super cold. So what have you guys been up to on Foolproof? Post cobia, everything seems to adjust. What have you guys been doing?
Well, the water temperature is still 73 degrees, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's still some cobias around out there somewhere. But we have been chasing the big drum and did a little sheepshead fishing and trying to switch a little more over into the inshore side of things, catching some speckled trout and puffy drum, and of course there's enough ribbon fish to fill your boat with in my inlet. But I even saw some Spanish jumping yesterday or day before yesterday.
Oh, wow. It's funny. I want to go back to what you said about you kind of slid that 73-degree water temperature in there. And, Saturday I was headed out with my buddy Dave and his son Luke. Yep, same name, two Lukes. I'm Big Luke. He's Little Luke. And they're just kind of getting adjusted some of the fishery around here. And, we've, remember what Captain Bill Pappas said about, finding a wreck and doing some circles around it till you find, a wad of fish. So we were just kind of learning as we go. And we were fortunate, in a few hours to get a couple of decent fish on board and have something for dinner. And, but I'm not going to lie to you. On the way out, I'm looking down at the temp and I saw 73 and some change. And the first thing that went through my head is, man, maybe we should stop and check some buoys.
That's right. They're out there.
Yep. We didn't. We were on a mission, but the thought definitely crossed my mind. But
last week, Robbie caught one on a slow pitch jig. They're out there deep.
Yes, I saw that. That had to have been exciting. What would you think at first? So you're deep dropping, you're slow pitch jigging, you're ripping that thing up off the bottom, letting it flutter down, and you get hit that hard. What would be your first initial thought as far as what might be on the other end of that hook?
I would have to think it'd be a shark. It ate a little sea bass or one of them drum. The drum are out there too.
Okay.
Usually later in the season. Probably a shark would be my first guess.
Right, and then to have that surprise of that nice 53-inch cobia coming up, like, oh baby, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
But at any rate, so you come out of the Little Creek Inlet, and you mentioned that there's, a thriving population of ribbon fish, which I know people love to catch and eat, some speckled trout. So, talk me through a couple of recent trips. What were some of the things that you guys really dialed in on the most?
Well, I believe it was Friday. I had a sheepshead trip. We went out and fished the bridge and tried to catch some sheepshead and did pretty good on them. Burned through a whole lot of fiddler crabs. My guy David was new to the sheepshead game, and I was trying to get him dialed in because he's actually a guy who travels the country chasing trophy fish. He's caught a trophy fish in 47 of the 50 states, and he's just getting over to saltwater. So the sheepsheads one, he caught a billion drum this year fishing with me and and Marva, Mr. Tom, and he's caught quite a few cobia citations, but he's only got a handful of sheepsheads, and he's trying to get dialed in a little more with that. So we went out there and did that for a while and caught plenty of them, just didn't get one over about 22.5 inches.
Ugh. So in sheepshead terminologies, what's going to define, a trophy sheepshead?
10 pounds, or I believe it's 24 or 25 inches is a release citation.
Okay. Man,
So
47
we got
states.
close. I think we had one that was about 8 pounds, 8.5 pounds.
Mm. I mean, in your experience, and I know that you spend a lot of time cobia fishing, but I know you're also, that trolling motor up there, very capable of sheepshead fishing. What's
Yeah.
the average size sheepshead that you see, coming off of the CBPT?
It seems like we get some bigger ones earlier in the season, but the average size I would say is 6 to 8 pounds, somewhere in there.
Okay.
We do get some smaller ones. We've had some smaller ones here recently. Some that are like 15 inchers, but most of them are in that 18 to 22 inch range.
Wow. So to find one over 10 pounds or over 24 inches would certainly be a trophy in that regard. Talking through, the amount of fiddler crabs you went through, what was the hiccup there? Why so many fiddler crabs?
Well, it takes a certain little bit of finesse to know when to set the hook and how to get them hooked up, especially fishing the jigs in the heavy current like that. It takes some practice. And by the end of the day, he was sticking them pretty good.
I gotta imagine that learning curve is difficult until achieved. And by that, I mean, for example, sea bassing Saturday, I was having some trouble, getting hooked up. And then it was kind of this like trial and error thing for a little while. And then eventually I realized, okay, I need to find the bottom. And then once I find the bottom, I think what I was doing is I was, lifting it up too high. And anyways, I kind of got dialed in on like where I was experiencing the bites at. And then once I kind of figured that out, it seemed like there was a, more consistent hookup. So with sheepshead in particular, talk me through like what is the thing that causes most of us to miss the bite, resulting in loss of life, loss of fiddler crab life, versus actually, finding some purchase on that hook into that sheepshead mouth.
Well, I'm certainly not a professional at it. I can catch most of the fish out there. Just I haven't spent as much time dialing in the sheepshead thing, but we're getting pretty good at it. Now, the thing that in my personal opinion, that I think is why a lot of people don't feel the bite or know when to set the hook is sheepshead. I think a lot of the times when they bite that crab, they don't swim up, down. They just grab it, crush it, and then let go. And then, they grab the pieces. Like when they bite on the barnacles on the bridge and all the stuff kind of comes off, and then they, go and pick at all the little pieces that are floating in the water. I think they just smash it one good time. And if you're not ready for that, it's, you're late to the game.
So it's not like they're just kind of grazing over it like some other species might along the bottom or whatnot. It's like a predatory, like a visual. I see the bait. I'm going to go attack it. And I'm going to get in and out like a cat burglar type environment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now you get quite a few of them that are just hungry, and they'll eat it and have it in their mouth. And sometimes you'll feel your weight get light. Like they're swimming up with it. And if you just lift up till you feel that little bit of tension, and then if you feel that little bit of tension, you just stick it to them.
Got it. Okay. And then in terms of your hooks that you like to use and tackle, from the rod and reel down to the hook, what are you typically using for those sheepshead?
We switched over to using these 10-foot HMG rods, or HMX rods, by Fenwick. And I use a Squall low profile reels. It's just much easier to just push the button and drop it down, and you click it in gear and you're ready to go, rather than fumbling with the bail and all that stuff. It's especially for customers.
Got it.
As far as the jigs go, I'm a boat up lures guy. I used to tie his bucktails to help him out for years. Got to support the home team. I know a lot of guys like the Chong's jigs, and there's nothing wrong with them. They're certainly a good product, but I got to support my man Billy at Boat Up, so I always use his jigs, and they work great.
Very cool. And I mean, in terms of that jig, a Chong's jig, in terms of their profile and size, I'm imagining that they're probably equivalent in terms of their effectiveness.
That's
In
right.
terms of the weight, when you go to choose which size weight you're going to use for your jig, what factors do you consider before deciding on the weight that you're going to use?
Usually I'll move around different weights and try to find the lightest one that I can fish in the current that I've got. You can always, at least in my experience, the back pole, you can fish a lighter jig than you can on the front pole and keep it in place. But usually I'm using an ounce and a half, sometimes down to a 3/4 ounce, but an ounce and a half is probably the most used jig, at least for us.
Okay, got it. And so obviously, that's what you've been doing out in the bay, as well as I saw some of those big bull red drum. You're still getting on those when you want to, which is always a blast. I mean, I don't want to take away from the value of how fun they are to catch and whatnot, but I think we could agree that, it's not the most challenging species to target in the sense of like, where are they, right?
Yeah,
Once you get
exactly.
once you get that dialed in, it's pretty straightforward. And then in terms of bait, it's pretty simple. Again, if you know what to do and where to go, which we're not going to just,
Yep. If you're in the right spot, yeah, if you're in the right spot at the right time and have the right baits deployed, it's pretty good. And it surprises me because we have, I don't like to use this term, loosely, but a world-class drum fishery up here, and it's kind of hard to believe. People travel from all around the world to go to Louisiana to catch drum. So I don't know why we don't have more people traveling up here with these giant drum we have. I mean, the fishery we have is unbelievable. I had just Saturday, I had a guys that came out that actually, heard about me from your podcast, and we went out and caught some big drum in the morning, and I had 4 rods out and 3 of them went down at one time.
oh, wow.
And they were all one was 46, one was 51, and one was 49, all at one
Goodness.
time.
I mean,
And that's as good as it gets.
yeah, those are all 45 plus pound fish. I mean, that's an incredible fight, and like you said, the world class. I think a lot of times here in this little locality of the Lower Chesapeake Bay, we can kind of get a little bit spoiled, maybe even a little bit entitled, not considering just how special the resource is that we have. Here with the bridge tunnel system, and all the different little things that come together to make it an absolutely incredible estuary where these species like these bull red drum will hang out, for several months out of the year. And, for yourself as a charter guide, getting to go show these species to people has got to be rewarding each and every time, even though I'm sure you could probably, sometimes you probably see drum in your sleep. I don't know. I know you've caught a lot of them.
Yeah. Drum are my fish, man. I've been chasing them for a long time from, southeast North Carolina all the way up to the eastern shore of Virginia. Just,
Man,
up and down the beach and in the inlets and sounds and everywhere else. But,
that's awesome.
the fish that we have in the bay are by far the biggest
Mhm.
that you find just about anywhere. And there's more of them, it seems like, now than ever.
Yeah, I think one of the cool things we're experiencing year over year is as we become kind of students, and I've talked about this a little bit too with like, Tom Hilton's and Hilton's Real Time Navigator, as we become more aware and study what's happening, year over year, we can really start to understand how things are adjusting and changing. And I definitely agree with you. I can't recall a year before where I've seen the numbers on the drum like we have. So drawing a line kind of west from, the bridge tunnel into, the inlet and the surrounding area there, the jetties and whatnot, you guys offer kind of some inshore stuff too, and by way of speckled trout fishing and even some of the more slot size puppy drum and
Yeah.
ribbon fish.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, actually, and back to Saturday's trip, those fellas that went with me, they wanted to catch a couple big drum each, and we caught 5 or 6, and they wanted to go try to catch some fish to take home, and we went inside the inlet and got some baits and went out there, around the jetty and inside, outside, and up towards the to where my boat's docked, and when you can catch drum all in there and trout too. But
Wow.
we found a bite with slot, under slot, over slot drum. I think we caught them from 15 to 35 inches, and it was every cast. I mean,
Goodness.
it was unbelievable. Like, fishing little 2,000 size reels and little live baits and just getting smoked. It was awesome.
That is fun. I mean, what was the biggest speckled trout you saw?
Biggest speckled trout that I've seen. I had a friend of mine caught a 27 a couple days ago, but the biggest we have caught has only been 21. So we haven't been doing too much of the speckled trout yet with the water temps as warm as it is. There's a lot of small ones around, and you got to weed through those. But I mean, there is a ton of speckled trout. They're just, most of them are 8 to 13 inches, and then every now and then you'll get one that's 18, 19, 20, and certain times of day, certain tides, there's some big ones in there. Can't give away all the secrets, but
man, well,
yeah, we that's only going to get better, especially as the ribbon fish get out of there.
Right. And I was going to comment on that in terms of like, what do you find in the seasonal, adjustment that's happening right now when those speckled trout become a little bit more active as that water temperature drops a little bit? Where's that kind of sweet spot for you? Like if somebody listening is like, man, I do really want to target some speckled trout and maybe hope for a larger one, what's going to be that best time frame of year to get booked with you to go after some of those?
I tell you, that's any time now, especially if we get a little bit of northwest wind and it cools that water down, below 70 degrees, it's going to get good. Historically, this week is when it gets good. That second week of October is when it starts to get good, but it's going to be a little later this year. The water temps have been staying warmer. So I would say anytime in the next week or so, it's going to fire off. I'll be out there, speculating, trying to find them and getting ready and posting pictures. You'll know when it's time to go. I'll start posting some big ones.
I was looking around frantically for my little noise machine to do the little da-dunk when you said, speculating. But yeah. I'm with you there. It's one of my favorite times of year to go, speckled trout fishing, just because it's so easy. Like, and I say that meaning like you're not having the run out to anywhere. It's pretty much negligible about the weather unless it's just like blowing a gale or raining its butt off. So, regardless of most conditions that might affect a comfortable, bay trip, going fishing in the inlet is just, it's a blast and just relaxing. I definitely recommend it. If you're hard up to go and you love it, go. If you got, some colleagues, coworkers, or even like young kids that are, wanting to learn in a safe, relaxing environment, go. It's going to be a good time. And speaking of going, folks that want to go with you and get booked, what's going to be the easiest way for them to contact you in order to get an idea of your calendar availability and ultimately get booked with you?
Foolproof Fishing on Facebook or Instagram, or give me a call. My phone number is 252-435-5967. Like I said, right now we've got some of the best drum fishing you would ever see happening. And within the next week or so, we're going to have world-class speckled trout fishing, and that's only going to get better. And within the next month, I'll be moving my boat to the river, hopefully, and we'll be fishing for trout, up through Christmas and maybe even a little after, depending on the bite and how cold it gets.
That'll be a good time. You're talking about the up in the Elizabeth and those different branches?
Yeah.
Okay, very cool.
Yep. Typically the southern branch, just because of ease of access with my boat being bigger. And all the little bridges and stuff, it's easier for me to get around and navigate the southern branch. And I've got some spots in there that are really good.
Yeah, you're taking me back to my roots, man. That's where I started out fishing, was from a kayak in the Elizabeth River back in the good old days of what we called the Party Cove. And
oh yeah,
those were some times, man. Those were some times. But
and believe it or not, the speckled trout bite in there is just almost as good as it was back then. There's not quite as many huge ones, but there's some big trout in there.
Well, there's nothing like an explosive trout bite, just to me, for two reasons. One, the tackle you're on typically is so light, so when you get hit, I mean, you feel it, and it's a blast. And they just have such an aggressive bite. It's so fun the way that they, attack a lure, especially if you're using like a twitch bait, or, in a perfect world, if they hit a topwater for you, it's even more fun. And then,
That's right.
Of inshore species that you can also enjoy on the dinner plate, speckled trout are certainly, they'll do just fine.
Yep, very good.
Awesome. Well, Captain Travis, thank you so much for the report. You guys stick around for a word from our sponsors who are making the show and get to talk with guys like Captain Travis free for us each week, and we will be right back with you soon. Would your insurance cover an air ambulance in a medical emergency? The fact is, insurance doesn't cover the full cost of medical flights, leaving you and your loved ones at financial risk. But with an Air Medcare network membership, you can focus on recovery, not on finances, should the unexpected happen. They take care of everything with no costs for flights, only when flown by one of their providers. Membership covers your full household and starts at $99 a year. Visit gdo.deals/airmedcare to enroll. Sam Rust Seafood, your locally trusted source for premium wholesale seafood. Servicing customers from Hampton Roads down through the Outer Banks, Richmond, and surrounding areas, including Fredericksburg, Charlottesville, and Lynchburg, for over 80 years. Committed to the highest standards in the industry, Sam Rust distributes the best of the ocean directly to your restaurant, hotel, or grocery store on time and at a great price. Visit samrust.com to discover how quality, tradition, and sustainability come together. So don't cuss, call Sam Rust. All right, it's time for the What Did You Learn? So going back in time to Captain Bill, I got to say, it's always a pleasure to talk to him because he just brings so much joy and energy to the world of fishing. I swear the guy probably has fish dreams every night. It's just always a blast. And for those that, were listening and heard me talk about his tahi macos, not only did he, make me homemade tahi macos right there in his kitchen, he also blessed the meal, which I thought was great. And then on my way out the door, he said, "Here, once you have a pack of, perfectly cut sized pieces of mahi, the seasoning, everything, so I could go home and make my own tahi mako." So, Captain Bill, just absolute treat. Thank you so much for that. Hearing from him about sword fishing and the way that process has evolved, there's definitely a lot to pick up there, specifically on how the targeting of those fish is done in the daytime versus the traditional nighttime. So that was really interesting to learn about. Talking with Robbie at Sam Rust was a treat. There's so much that goes into the seafood process from the time of being, caught or harvested through to the distribution and on to the restaurant and ultimately to our plates. And so learning a little bit more about all of the, requirements and food and safety protocols that they have to do to maintain, the highest standards and quality when it comes to seafood was just really a treat to get to dive into. And I'm so grateful for them as a sponsor of the show, not only because of the, symbiotic nature of a seafood wholesaler and those of us who are out fishing, but also for the fact that they are participating in sustainability, which is a huge part of what we talk about here on the show, so that we can work together to preserve, this great fishery for generations to come. And then finally, talking to Captain Travis, always a wealth of knowledge. He's so educated on the things that he does. That time he spent working in a tackle shop, time he spent, helping tie lures. The guy's really just got a deep Rolodex of information in his brain and then capabilities, out on the water. So it was exciting to learn from him, especially that he's going to be adjusting to, moving his boat into the rivers into the colder months so that we can, get booked with him and get out there and really target some of those speckled trout that are up in those areas of the Elizabeth River that really aren't reachable unless you've got, expert guide like Travis to take you there. So there was definitely a lot of cool things to glean from this week's episode. I'm excited for, next week ahead. So guys, y'all just keep on learning and gleaning. We're going to keep bringing the information to you each and every single week. And of course, we are incredibly grateful for our sponsors that make it free for you, our listeners. Y'all, that's going to wrap it up this week. We'll talk to you soon. So that's going to wrap it up this week. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember, to get your free AFTCO Camo Sunglasses Cleaning Cloth, just text the acronym LCBFR to 779-345-2918 to get your promo code and be added to our email list so we can send you the new show each week. You guys keep whacking them and be safe out there.